Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our weekly series of shirim on the Zohar Kadosh, where we attempt to draw the light of Moshe Rabbeinu Raya Mehemna down into the vessels of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai Butzina Kadisha, to draw the water of Chachma down into the fire of Bina, to allow the general principle of the whole to express itself down within the fragmentation of the parts, to ultimately reveal a unity and a greatness that can only come about by way of the difference itself. We've spoken about this in so many different ways. But one element that I'm thinking about in terms of Lag BaOmer, we know that Ali Salamarum Shavisa Shevi, that Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Marom, he went on high to draw down the soul of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, as the Ramchal points out to us and as the Kamarna points out. Meaning to say that Moshe, who is the ideal form of Chachma, non-complication, understands the utmost significance of ascending upwards in order to retrieve the neshama of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, because he understands that it's specifically through the descent into Bina and the fragmentation of Rabbi Shimon that the full light of Moshe Rabbeinu is going to be able to emerge in the secret of the Raya Mehemna and the yichud of Chachma and Bina, which reveals Keser. And this is what happens at the end of the Torah. Moshe Rabbeinu represents the Chachma Shebechol Davar, the illumination of unity. But ultimately, at the end of the Torah, we see that Yasher Kolcha Asher Shibarta Le'enei Kol Yisrael. Le'enei Kol Yisrael is Sofei Tevos Kli, Roshe Tevos Kli. It represents the vessels, it represents the descent of unity down into constriction. And ultimately, it's there that Yasher Koach Asher Shibarta, that Moshe Rabbeinu breaks the luchos and they shatter into Shivrei Kelim. And it's ultimately there that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Moshe, this is where the strength is going to come from. Yasher Koach means that even though it appears that you don't have the strength because you've now descended away from your original vantage point, you will come to find an unfathomable strength that you could have never imagined. Yasher Koach. Your koach is going to be straightened. Your koach is going to be revealed in a deeper way. And it's specifically at the end of the Torah when Moshe Rabbeinu understands the importance of moving away from Chachma, moving away from unity, and descending down into disunity, into the brokenness of the Shivrei Luchos, and that secret of Rashbi, which is Osios of Shivrei, the brokenness, the shattering, the decomposition that comes about specifically in the place of Bina, it's specifically there that the Koach of Moshe Rabbeinu is going to emerge with even more intensity. It's the same process that took place with Moshe Rabbeinu and Rabbi Akiva in Shas. It's the same light that's taking place between Moshe Rabbeinu and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Zohar, because Rabbi Shimon is the Talmud of Rabbi Akiva, who draws the light of Torah Sheba'al Peh of Rabbi Akiva down into the Pnimius of the Zohar Kadosh, which is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. And that's why the Midos of Rabbi Shimon are like the Midos, they're the Truma of the Midos of Rabbi Akiva, because ultimately what Rabbi Shimon is doing is just extending the light of Rabbi Akiva, his Rebbe. In the secret of the Shah Nehurin. Shah is Shimon and Akiva. And it's Mahapich, the process of Ash, which is Akiva and Shimon, because Rabbi Akiva's derech is the derech of Yisurin, and Rabbi Shimon's derech is the derech of Menucha. So in the beginning, it starts off with first it's the Ayin, and then it's the Shin. First it's Rabbi Akiva, and then we have Rabbi Shimon. But in that place where we begin with the Yisurin Chas v'Shalom, that can become a Beged Achel Ash. It could become the clothes that the moths eat at. The Ayin Shin of Ash is the Ayin Shin of Esav, because they stole the Vav from us, so now it's Esav. But in truth, when we retrieve that Vav from Esav, and that need for the derech of the Yisurin of Rabbi Akiva falls away, it's going to be the Shah Nehurin, which is the revelation of Shimon and Rabbi Akiva, that the derech of Rabbi Shimon is going to be Megala within itself the derech of Rabbi Akiva, which means that the derech of Menucha will include within itself the derech of the Yisurin Kaviyachol. So it will be Yisurin of Yigia Satora and Chedvasa Deshmaisa, rather than Chas v'Shalom any difficulty on any revealed way. Anything other than Rachamim Rabim is the derech of Rabbi Akiva. The derech of Rabbi Shimon is Rachamim Rabim, is Tahir Ir Tiveria, is coming out of the cave and purifying the world, telling his son Rabbi Elazar to stop burning things up. It's beautiful. It's all beautiful. It's all a kavod Shabbos. And in the process of Moshe Rabbeinu breaking the luchos, the illumination of Rabbi Shimon comes up. And that's what we're doing. Yasher koach asher shibarta. The same is taking place, like we said, by Rabbi Akiva also. Moshe Rabbeinu sees the whole. He sees Chachma, and then he sees that Rabbi Akiva has everything. Rabbi Akiva has all of the particulars. And Moshe Rabbeinu has a chalisha sadas. He has a tashash kocho, he has a weakening of strength, because he feels that I can't do that, I can't descend down into the particularity. Until at the end of that encounter, Rabbi Akiva says that the place that I learn all of this particularity out of is from Halacha Moshe Sinai. So Moshe Rabbeinu comes to realize that ultimately all eventual separation and disintegration of the whole for the sake of the renewal of the potency and the novelty of Chiddush and Torah and Emunah, it's all rooted in Moshe Rabbeinu himself. Moshe Shapir Kamart. and that the book of Rabbi Shimon is ultimately the book of Moshe Rabbeinu Raya Mehemna, and that Lag BaOmer is ultimately the Hilul of Rashbi, the preparation for the Hiskaldus of the Torah of the Raya Mehemna, the Torah of Atika Stima, of the Torah of Moshe Rabbeinu. And then in the Yichud of Moshe Rabbeinu and Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, we have Emasai Ka'asimar. When is Mashiach going to come? When we can unify the path of Moshe and Rabbi Shimon, of Chachma and Bina together. And so we're going to go into a place in the Zohar HaKadosh, which is just so beautiful. I knew that such a place existed. I know that there are other places like this in the Zohar HaKadosh. I never saw it in Parshas Acharei Mos. And it's on Daf Nun Zayin Amud Beis and Nun Ches Amud Aleph, going from the process of Hazan, of the sustenance that comes from the Zohar Kadosh that transforms itself into the Chain of the Zohar Kadosh, that a person eats from the Zohar because they need nourishment, because we can't live without it. But in that eating, even though it's by way of necessity, we uncover the secret of the Chain and the grace and the kindness that is hidden within the Zohar Kadosh. And so let's see. Zohar Kadosh says as follows. Vayomer Hashem el Moshe daber v'el Aharon achicha v'al yavo b'chol eis el HaKodesh. Kadosh Baruch Hu speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu and he says, I'm speaking to you and I'm speaking to Aaron, your brother, and I'm explaining to you that you can no longer enter in at any time into the Kodesh. There has to be preparation. Preparation. For Moshe and Aaron, there has to be preparation. There's always an element of preparation. The preparation for Moshe is different than the preparation for Aaron, but ultimately there has to be preparation. And we're going to see at the end of this remarkable Josh of the Zohar how we can bring it back into this pasuk. But what we can hold in mind right now is that Moshe and Aaron are Chachma and Bina. Moshe is the illumination, and Aaron is the secret of Hod, which is the secret of Hod Shebahod, which is the secret of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who's referred to as the Kohen Gadol. And so the process of Moshe Rabbeinu and Aharon understanding how to enter into Malchus, to draw Chachma and Bina down into Malchus, that's what this entire piece of the Zohar HaKadosh is going to teach us. Now, to summarize, just to frame a little bit so that the potency of the words can have more of an impact, and I'm going to do my best to be mitzamsem so that we can let the words of the Zohar HaKadosh speak for themselves. But what we're about to see is a two-step process. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is going to step up to plate, and he's going to say there is a need for drawing down moichin from above to below. The goal of being a yid in this world is to be miyachid yichudim and to be megala the soid hayichud, which is to unify heaven and earth, to reveal that ein oin milvado, that all is unified, everything is kadosh, 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 Hashem tzvakos meloch ala haaretz kavodo. And that the Yichud Ilah and that the Yichud Tata, in spite of the fact that they appear different, are fundamentally rooted in the singular unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Etzem, and the Darga of Emuna Pshuta, Emuna Kolzos, that contains all things together. The Tachlis is to draw down that spiritual awareness from above, down, 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 down below to this worldliness itself, to the roads of northern Eretz Yisrael, Marav Tuvcha Shet Safan to the Reachav. And so Rabbi Shimon is going to bemoan the fact that there's nobody doing this, that there's nobody going through the process of becoming aware, of awakening ourselves to the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and drawing it down into our experiences of Torah, of experience, and the experience of Torah, and the Torah of experience. And Rabbi Shimon is bemoaning the fact that there is nobody properly doing this. And he goes on to not only bemoan the fact that it's not happening properly, but he goes on to describe how ultimately it can't really happen properly. We're at a point where we can no longer make it happen properly. There's almost a prevention. Rabbi Shimon seems to imply that, you know what, it's too late. You can't do the avodah. And then Rabbi Shimon is going to go from there, and then he's going to reveal the path in which the avodah is done. So there is the bemoaning of the fact that the avodah is not being done. There is the near impossibility of the avodah being done. And then once we're confronted with the near impossibility of the avodah actually being done, Rabbi Shimon then goes in with the help of Ram Himnuna Saba to teach us exactly how the avodah is done. Now, these two elements of this piece in the Zohar HaKadosh are not two separate teachings, but rather they're two parts of a singular whole. That the process of Hamshachas HaMoichin, the process of drawing HaKadosh Baruch Hu into consciousness, the process of being a human being in this world that lives with the residual memory of the fact that Achin Ata Kel Mistater, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you conceal yourself. You conceal yourself, and I have to learn the secret of Emunah, and I have to learn the secret of Yichud. And from within the constriction and the concealment of this world, a person can come to find the hidden light, the Or HaGanuz, The Or HaGanuz that rests within the Chalila de Golgalta, that rests across every element of the body and the different shemos and the different names that a person can contemplate in the secret of Shivisi Hashem Lenegdi Tamid Keneged, each and every aver of myself. There's an element of Shem Havaya that can be Maskala. There's an element of Moshe, the Mechoikeik, who's engraved upon each and every bone. Each and every moment and experience is the opportunity to draw down the light of Anoichi, to reveal the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu at the heart of all things. But first and foremost, before we can do that, there has to be an awakening from below. And that every process of Hamshachas HaMoichin, every process of drawing down divine consciousness and living with Emunah, is split between two elements of a singular pulsation, man and mad, isarusa dilatata and isarusa dilaila, awakening from below and an expression from above. The awakening from below is the acknowledgement of deficiency, the lack, the fact that nothing is happening and no one is doing anything, and that everything can only be seen from the perspective of the negative and that which is not present. That awakening that comes about by way of the acknowledgement of lack, by way of deficiency, is not simply a moment for a person to judge themselves. God forbid. There's no room for judgment in the process of tshuva. A person has to engage in tshuva. And in that place, the awakening and the bitterkeit and the brokenness that comes about from the emptiness of the vessel is what awakens the desire to ascend upwards to actually become the very mechanism that draws down the eventual effulgence and renewal of faith that comes back down from above. Meaning to say that we tend to think of the awakening from below and the descent from above as two separate things, that I can do this work down here, recognize my deficiency, and then somehow, some way, spooky action at a distance, Hashem is going to decide to send down hashpa'ah from above. And to a certain level, that remains true from the level of yichud ilah, because ein arich l'cha. But from the level of yichud hata, where avodah l'tzarach gavoa, what we have to understand is that they are not two separate stages, that the awakening from below is in and of itself the descent from above, and the clarifications and the encounter and the hitmodedut and the presencing and the processing and the confidence to face the deficiencies and the pockets of lack in our lives, and to be able to determine the difference between that which can be filled and that which can't be filled, and to learn to know the difference and to do the work of Bechira properly within the context of my own subjective experience in this world with my singular perspective of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That work itself is in and of itself the process that goes up and awakens a newfound dimension of faith that was hitherto inaccessible to the individual. It is not like I have written something down and then surprise, surprise, something comes from above. The writing that is done down here is the very shape in which the expression is going to come from above. So Hamshachas HaMoichin is ultimately coming to realize that all of the processes that I thought were the opposite of Moichin, where I felt unconscious because I was struggling and I was aware of my lack and I was aware of my deficiency, the expression of moichin and consciousness coming back down is the retroactive possibility of looking back and saying, wow, I was with you all along, Rabbeinu Shalom. You've been with me all along, even in the process. In the process and in the result. You've been with me all along. The result is what enables me to look back on the process and realize that the process itself was ultimately the point of the result itself. And it's ad infinitum, this process. And so the awakening from below and the descent from above is one and the same thing. There's a process of acknowledging the lack and learning how to grapple with the lack and going through the entire process of elevating that lack through Hachna'a, Havdalah, and Hamtaka, the three-stage process through which the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh draws down the process of processing with anything. Hachna'a, subduing the intensity and the force of that which feels like a chisaron. Havdalah, separating myself from it so that I can look at it objectively and I can analyze it from a point of distance without the fever of the Nefesh HaBahamis. And then Hamtaka is elevating that deficiency back up to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and drawing down sustenance from Hashem. So the fact that Rabbi Shimon is bemoaning the fact that nobody is doing the work, and then he goes in to make it sound like it's almost impossible for the work to be done. And it's from that point that the work is explained to us. This is just the pattern in which the work takes place, that the Avodah takes place, awakening to our chisaron, learning how to climb with our chisaron, recognizing the natural nature of our chesronos and not to judge ourselves with unfelt and undue shame and the negative self-talk and the weakness and the hopelessness inducing stuckness that we all have a tendency to live with, and rather to climb out of that chisaron with confidence and to say, Hashem, if this is the chisaron that you want me to be conscious in right now, then this is the chisaron that you want me to be conscious in right now, and it's my job to be memala this chisaron. Every chisaron is a halal, it's an empty space. Every halal is a chilul Hashem, it's an apparent emptiness of God's presence. Every moment of encountering the halal and the chilul and the chased there is the opportunity to reveal Hashem's light there, to reveal wholeness there. And there's no greater work than revealing wholeness and emptiness. There's no greater work than revealing God's presence in the apparent absence of Him. So it's this awakening to the deficiency that Rabbi Shimon awakes within us. And only Rabbi Shimon has the ability to do that, because Rabbi Shimon is Kadai Lismoch. Rabbi Shimon understands the secret. Rabbi Shimon is the one person who's saying the Torah is never going to be forgotten. Rabbi Shimon is the one person who has the Amunah in the entirety of Klal Yisrael to say that Kulam Tzadikim, and to understand that they are the people who are going to bring Mashiach Tzidkenu. This is the Torah of Rabbi Shimon. Everybody else can forget about the bonds of revelation because Rabbi Shimon is holding on to the bond of concealment. B'chad katira it karina, there's a singular thread of connectivity, and that is belief in Nishmas Yisrael that shines forth from every ounce of the Zohar HaKadosh. And so what Rabbi Shimon is doing is he's bringing us face to face with our chisaron, and that's the beginning of the spiritual process. And then we're going to reach a point where it seems that we're at a limit and that there's no hope left to be able to break free from that chisaron. And then there's a Mesiras Nefesh. And then suddenly what opens in front of a person is the path of how to then move along the thread of that work that we've already been doing of grappling with our deficiencies, and how that in and of itself opens up onto the Derech HaMelech of how to draw down Moichin Lamata, Lamata, Lamata to Malchus, to our own experience, and then from there to draw it back up again, because it's the never-ending process of drawing down for the sake of cultivating more and ascending up to reveal that moreness, and drawing down again to show more and more and more, Od and Od Yoter Tov. And this is the language of the Zohar HaKadosh. Vayomer Hashem al Moshe, daber v'Aaron achicha v'al voy b'chol eis al hakodesh. Rabbi Shimon pasach v'yomer. Rabbi Shimon opens up and he says, and again, when Rabbi Shimon opens up, he's giving us a portal, a base medrash, a path of living and walking and encounter to live with, so that when we read the words, they can saturate our minds. He quotes the pasuk from Koheles: Kol hanechalim holchem el hayam v'hayam einenu malei. All of the streams flow forth to the sea, but the sea is never filled. All of the outgrowths, all of the dimensions of particularity go towards a place of unity, but that unity is never fully exhausted, because the unity is always a little bit more than the sum total of the points that it collects within it. Amar Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon says, and this is the process of the awakening of the man, when we begin to encounter deficiency within our minds, where we realize that there's a ratzon that Hashem has in the world, but I can't chap it in my chachma, I can't chap it in my bina. The realization that I can't grasp it in my chachma and that I can't grasp it in my bina, that's not the opposite of chachma and bina, that's the beginning of grasping it by way of chachma and bina. By acknowledging that I don't have a grasp of it, that is already setting into motion the work of spiritual contemplation. Amar Rabbi Shimon says, Tavhana al b'nei alma dehaleis lehu einin lemichsei v'liba leishkacha. Rabbi Shimon says, I'm so confused and I'm so perturbed and I'm so bothered, and I have so many kashas on people in this world, on b'nei alma, people in concealment. They do not use their eyes to see, nor do they use their heart to hear. The eyes to see is the chachma, our ability to see wholeness and totality and goodness. And liba le'ashkacha is bina, which is our capacity to contemplate and subjectivize experience. But we don't use our chachma and we don't use our bina. V'lo yadin, and we don't have das. We don't have chachma, bina, or das. What are we missing out on? We're missing out on re'usa de mareyon, the keser. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants something out of this world. There's a ratzon yirei of ya'aseh, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a ratzon. Ratza HaKadosh Baruch Hu lios ladir betachtoinim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a ratzon kavyachol for the mitzvos and the Torah and Mesiras Nefesh and Tefillah and Emunah and Bitachon. This is all we know. We know that it's the ratzon of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we continue to have Emunah in Him. And when we're makayim the mitzvah of b'derech Emunah b'charti, we're also makayim the mitzvah of being moiser nefesh for the ratzon ha'elyon, the ratzon, the ein sof kavyachol, the fullest expression of what we can grasp of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light in this world. We're trying to grasp the re'usa de marayon. We're trying to understand the depth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's will, and we have tools for it, like we've spoken about. We have einayim, we have chachma, we have a heart, we have bina. But over here, Rabbi Shimon is saying no one's using their chachma, no one's using their bina. They have no knowledge whatsoever of the essence of the desire, the divine will, so to speak. How could it be that they remain asleep? How could it be that they're not awoken from their slumber? Now, again, Rabbi Shimon is talking to a sleeping person. And again, it's a recognition of the state of affairs and without judgment, because the person is still sleeping. And Rabbi Shimon is not shaking the person. But Rabbi Shimon is bemoaning the fact he's davening and saying, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, look how deep the slumber is. Look how deep the sleep is. V'loi mit'arei mishineson. That's Rosh Tevo's mum, meaning to say we're not able to contemplate the mum. We're not able to face the chisaron. We're not able to recognize Elokim yet. We're not able to live with the awareness of what it means to be a yid. Ad lo yese hahu yoyme de chafi alayhu chashucha v'kabla v'yasve hahu mare de pekdoina chushbana minayu. And unfortunately, says Rabbi Shimon, this world is a transient place. And that one day or another, a person is going to wake up. One day or another, a person is going to encounter that place that's Malei Einayim, the Malach HaMavas, that's Malei Einayim, that forces a person to open their eyes and to open up the stoppages of the heart, to encounter the Or, the Marayhon, to find the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's going to happen one day or another. And this is what Rabbi Yitzchak tells his Talmidim when they say, how do we do tshuva before we die? Rabbi Yitzchak says, do tshuva each and every day. Each and every day. How do we do tshuva? The Talmidim of Rabbi Yitzchak ask him. He says, do tshuva one day before you die. Rebbe, how do we know the day we're going to die? He says, that's a good kasha. Now do tshuva every day. So Rabbi Shimon is bemoaning the fact, he's saying one way or another, the neshama is going to be forced to open its eyes. We're going to be forced to see the unity of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We're going to be forced to utilize every ounce of emunah and tmimus and pshitus to hold on to the simple faith in HaKadosh Baruch Hu's goodness. There's going to come a time where our hearts are going to need all of the nun sha'arim, all of the extrapolation of the mind to behold more and more light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, more and more residual meaning in our experiences. But woe to the generation who waits for the day of death, for the day of concealment. And again, death is simply the descent away from one level to the next. We're not talking about, God forbid, the death that should only happen after 120 years, and Mashiach Tzidkenu should come, and Tchias HaMeshim should come before that has to happen to any yid again. But the death that comes about in the spiritual descent and the loss of consciousness. Rabbi Shimon is saying, why wait? Why do you have to wait? If your eyes and your heart are going to be forced to be open to behold the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then why wait for that last day? And Rabbi Shimon says, not only that, but v'chruza kol yomi koi alayhu, that there's a voice that comes out. There's a baskol that comes out. We can't claim that there's no desire. We can't claim that we don't know. We can't claim that at the core of each and every one of our experiences that we haven't tasted a certain unspeakable desire for that which is most holy, for that which is most present, for that which is most peaceful and calm, for that menuchas emes sha'atarot seba, to draw down that menucha that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to take presence in. And it's a menucha that only Hashem can bestow to us. And then we enjoy it, and then we praise Hashem for that menucha, and Hashem loves that. V'yedu ki menucha sam, that they should know that their calmness comes from you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'yal menucha sam yakdishu et shemecha. And it's specifically from the calmness that you give to us that we're going to sanctify your name. Every yid knows deep down that there's a kruza kol yum mekoi alayu, that there's a voice crying out at each and every moment. Not a scary voice anymore. Nobody cares about scary voices. The world is scary enough. People want to hear voices, the cruise of Chol Yum Makai, that beautiful sound, that Kol Biya'ar, that voice from the forest that calls out, and it says that Shuvu Banim Shavavim. And it's the Hurhurei Tshuva that come about from Har Chorev, those Hurhurei Tshuva that the Gra understood, that the Baal Shem Tov understood. The singular sound that is emanating from the silent heart of each and every yid of return, return. Rabbi Shimon is saying we're not going to be able to claim that there was no voice. We will be able to claim that there was a lot covering the voice, but we will not be able to claim that that cruise was gone. Cruise is the Raza de Chafvav. Cruise is Raza de Chafvav, the secret of that cruise that comes out, that secret of the cruise of Chafvav, of the Shem Havaya that's misoirer within the heart of each and every person, where it says, Shuvu banim shavavim, Shivisi Hashem lenegdi tamid, that the Shem Hashem is perpetually calling out to me. V'nishmaseyon asadis b'hoin b'chol yom v'layla. And not only that, but we've testified to the fact of our desire. Our neshamas testify the fact that we know that it's one fell swoop of the mind, then we can be back in Kodesh HaKadoshim. That with 1 ounce of Hiskabras HaNefesh, where I understand that all of the things that have happened up until this point spiritually have absolutely nothing to do with where I am in this moment. And when I can be take myself from that past, and I can start again in this moment, Ein Mesiras Nefesh Gadol Mizu. And in that place, it's Bazos Yavo Aron HaKodesh. A person encounters the Kodesh HaKadoshim with that Hisayrus. As the Rishonim say that when a person overcomes the desire to fall, that they should daven in that moment because there's a segula to daven near a tzaddik, and when a person overcomes a desire like that, then they're nikra a tzaddik, and therefore a person has the segula to daven because they've become a tzaddik themselves. That it takes 1 ounce of energy more than what we conceive of our possible energies in our own subjective life to reveal that Kodesh HaKadoshim. Our neshama knows it. The Torah is screaming out. The Torah is on every element of existence, screaming out to be learned. Every ounce of existence demands the mind, it demands the heart, it demands making meaning, because without meaning making, then a person is lost. As avodah tibioni, that's the secret of Orisa. Orisa is the illumination of meaning making that's rooted in fundamental certainty, that's rooted in a faith beyond provability. That is the illumination of meaning. It's the Orisa, it's the seichel shebechol davar. It's crying out. Every moment is screaming out darsheni. So Rabbi Shimon is saying that it's shver, that we're not doing it because our neshamos know what they're capable of doing. Every day the Torah screams out and it's announcing over and over, Ad masai petayim ta'avu pesi. How long are those who are without wisdom going to love being without wisdom? If a person is without wisdom, then they can't enter into wisdom unless they open themselves up to the possibility of being brought into wisdom. That's the secret of the Torah, which is machimas pesi. Machimas Pesi, that has the capacity to descend down even into the lowest places. What's Pesi? Pesi is Pas. Pas is Gematria 480, which is the secret, the Gematria of Talmud. It's Torah Shabbal Peh. It's the Milei Dishtusa. What happens after the shattering of the Luchos? And it's the revelation of the Yud within the Pas, which is the secret of the Torah Shabbat within Torah Shabbal Peh, and the secret of Moshe Shapir Kalmart. Mi pesi yaser heina chaser leiv amrlo. What is this foolishness that descends upon human beings? It's clear that the heart has left. The heart is whispering. Where is its ability to pay attention? L'chu lachmu belachmi v'shasu b'yein mesachti. The Torah is saying, go partake of the chachma, of the bina, of the lechem of the Torah, of the yayin of the Torah, of the razin and the razin derazin, niglos and nigla, chachma and bina. Come and partake. That's what the Torah is announcing. V'leis mandi yarchin udnaihu. And there's no individual who bends and attunes their ear, and there's no individual who is awakening their heart. So after we've seen that we're trying to awaken the Kesser of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're trying to understand the desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, our desire, which is his desire, the Yechida Liyechidcha, the secret of Mesiras Nefesh for Emunah each and every second, the secret of the Sha'ashuim of Emunah, of the radical Tchias HaMesim that comes when we reaffirm faith within our minds and reconnect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in this moment, to speak directly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu from the Leiv HaEvan, to transform the Leiv HaEvan into a Leiv Basar, to awaken Nevuah, to allow prophecy to flow forth from within Tzion and Yerushalayim. That the Torah is crying out and it's saying, simply attune your ears. Now, Yarchin Udnei is different than the Chachma that we don't have. Our eyes are not looking, and the Bina that we don't have, and our ears are not listening, and the Das that we don't have. Over here, the Zohar Kadosh is Mashalev, two terms, that the ears are not attuning themselves, and the heart is not becoming awoken. That's going to be the secret of Yisrael Saba and Tvuna, meaning to say we have no ability to draw down the Moichin down into Midos. But ultimately, this whole process of becoming aware of what we can't do and what we don't have, and the voices that we're not listening to, has already placed the person at alert level, where now that we know what we're not doing, we've become vessels to be able to experience what it is that we do need to be doing. This is the wisdom of Rabbi Shimon, that by way of teaching the negative side, he's revealing the positive side. This is the man boilakan man shemahapich meriru lematiku chashucha lenuhura. The prerequisite for the Zohar Kadosh is transforming bitterness into sweet, darkness into light. Tachazi, come and see, says Rabbi Shimon. Zeminin dare basrayu diyesin diyesnashe araisa mebenaihu. Rabbi Shimon comes and says, come and see, there's going to come a time, a future generation, where the Torah is going to be forgotten from them. It's different than Rabbi Shimon in Bavli. In Bavli, Rabbi Shimon, it says, Chas v'shalom shalei tishkach mi pizaro. But in the Zohar, underneath the protection of the Zohar Kadosh, in the warm air of that northern sky, Rabbi Shimon has the confidence to be able to say, you know what? There comes a time where it's going to look like the Torah itself is going to be forgotten. And the wise ones of heart, the unity of Chachma and Bina, are going to gather together to their place in the secret of the Idra. The Pasach. And there was going to be nobody to protect the Pasach. And Rabbi Shimon says, Vai lahahu dara. Vai lahahu dara. Oi to that generation that is not going to have access to the Torah. And so here, after Rabbi Shimon has oriented us towards our deficiency and what we're not doing, he now brings it into a historical pivot point where he's saying not only is this not being done, but it's a generational process also. There's a historic significance here. And there are blockages that transcend the individual's particular stance. It's more of a generational issue, and this adds to the hopelessness. This adds to the potential of thinking that maybe we won't be able to do it. Mikanu lahala, Rabbi Shimon says, from here on out, lo yehe dara kedara da. There will never be a generation quite like our generation, the generation of Rashbi v'chaverov. Ad dara diyaisa malka mashicha. Mikan ulahala lo yehe dara kedara da ad dara diyaisa malka mashicha. Rabbi Shimon says, from here on out, there will never be a generation quite like ours until the generation where the Melech HaMashiach arrives. Uminda yitayar ba'alma, and wisdom and das will be awoken in the world. Now here, Rabbi Shimon is bringing us to the limit where the hisayrus and the desire and the ga'aguim and the sha'ashua to awaken ourselves, to wake up to the chachma, to wake up to the bina, to taste our world and our days, it reaches its crescendo because not only is there going to be a generation that seems to forget this light, but our generation was the greatest chance, says Rabbi Shimon, until the generation of Mashiach Tzidkenu. Now, B'hai Safri Afkin Megalusa Berachamim, when a person learns the Sefer of the Zohar, they are awakening redemption that selves, which means that anytime we enter into the generation of the Zohar, what we're doing is we're entering into Moichin of Geula, which means to say that the generation of Rabbi Shimon, which won't return until the generation of Geula, is simply the generation that decides to read the words of Rabbi Shimon, which opens up portals of Geula, of Krav el Nafshi Geula, as well as collective Geula. And so that, yes, Rabbi Shimon is fundamentally correct to the degree that he's saying there is never going to be a generation quite like ours again. But nevertheless, there will come a time of Adara Diyaisa Malka Mashiach, the time when the Melech HaMashiach is awakening, Diyaisa Melech Mashiach, that same light is going to come back down. And so at first we say, okay, we're not doing it, and now we don't have the ability to do it. But then Rabbi Shimon adds for us that there is an opening if it's the door of the Melech HaMashiach. And everything that we're trying to do is bring out the door of Melech HaMashiach and to reveal the light of Melech HaMashiach. Uminda yetayr ba'alma, and there's going to be a wisdom, a das, that is revealed in the world. So now we've gone from not having access to Keser because we're not using our Chachma, we're not using our Bina, we're not using our Das, and we're not activating our Yisrael Saba and Tvuna and our ability to draw that wisdom down into this worldliness itself and to actually do the thing, which is to draw the light of Hashem down into our lives and our mitzvah observance and our tefillah and our kavana and our attitudes and our mitzvos and our midos. And now Rabbi Shimon is now starting to talk about uminda yatar ba'alma, but here the das begins to emerge. The das comes out of the recognition of what we don't have. The chisaron creates the das. Da kani ma chaser, da lo kani ma kanita. That das is always has a hither side of a chisaron of das, and that there's no nature of das without the possibility of hesach hadas. And it's specifically from within that space of hesach hadas, which is the halal, which is the forgetfulness, which is the pesi, which is the sleeping, which is the slumber, which is the unconsciousness. That is the very point in which the light of das is going to emerge. And suddenly Rabbi Shimon goes from the prohibition against das to give us access into Das itself and how to draw it down from beneath Yisrael Saba and Tvuna. We're no longer operating in the realm of the Moichin. We've crossed over that brain-body barrier. We've gone from the Keser to the Chachma of not having Chachma, not having Bina, not having Das. And suddenly we find ourselves at the bridge of Das, Uminda Yetayr Ba'alma. But now there's going to be Das that is awoken in the world. Dichsiv ki kulam yadu osi lemekatnam ve'ad gadlam. Because it's written that they will all know me from their katnus to their godless. It doesn't matter where a person is. If they open themselves up to be the Dara, the Malka Mashiach, in the light of Bahai Safra Yafkin Megalusa Barachamim, so then they'll all have a yidiyah of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Tachazi ksiv v'nahar yoitze mi Eden. V'nahar yoitze mi Eden. This is code word. V'nahar yotzim Eden is Rosh Tevos Yom. It's the avoda of right now. It means this is how we draw down the illumination from Gan Eden of the mind down into lived experience. Eden is the clarity of the mind that is awoken by way of contemplating spirituality and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But the Nahar HaYotzim Eden is the elongation of that outside of its primary source to be able to express itself downwards, lower and lower and lower, to the degree that it can irrigate all of the fields and even Malchus Malchus, and we can transform our darkness into places of illumination. Nar Yoitzimi Eden. What do we do now that we have Das, says Rabbi Shimon? Now we have to awaken ourselves. Now that we've entered into the place of drawing down the Mayim Duchrim after the deficiency, so it's the Nahar Yoitzimi Eden. There's a Nahar that comes forth from Eden. Vitaninan, and we've been taught Mashmei Dahahu Nahar. Ukmana Yuval Shmei. So just in terms of what we've been learning with David Malka Mashiach, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai says, what's the name of this river? How does one draw forth the light from Gan Eden? Now that we've gotten into the territory where, okay, I've come to realize Ein Shem Yesh B'Olam Klal, and that I can have an experience of godliness in my life if I could just draw that Nahar forth from Eden. But what's the name of that river? How do I do it? So Rabbi Shimon says, Yuval Shmei. And for me, what that means is what we said yesterday. Yuval is Rosh Tevos v'yigva libo b'darchei Hashem. That in the realm of Rabbi Shimon, in the realm of Bina, what is necessary to draw down confidence is the radical self-confidence that emerges from within the Nekuda HaPnimis of being a Yid. The Nekuda Sayehudi, which is the Malchus of Keser of Malchus, which is the same across the board, as the Heilige Kamarna says, Halavai ketpachos min apchusim. That Halavai should be at this lowly point of the irreducible space of that Yud, that Yid. And when I stand upon that Nakuda and I know where I come from, so then it's V'yigva libo b'darchei Hashem, radical Aziz to Kedusha. That, Rabbi Shimon seems to be saying, is what's going to be necessary to draw the light down from Das and to draw it down into our minds. After having realized that it's impossible and experiencing the chisaron, now that chisaron makes way to the belief and the saturation point that will come about afterwards, and the way to do that, Rabbi Shimon says, the path, the river that we need to engage with is Yuval. Yuval, it's Rosh Tevos, v'yigva libo b'darchei Hashem. It's also the word Yovel, which is the secret of Bina, because in the territory of Rabbi Shimon, it's the territory of Avoda and Yegia. D'chsiv v'al Yuval yishalech sharashav. That with Yuval, through the river of Yuval, through the Avoda, v'yigva libo b'darchei Hashem, the radical self-acceptance and the radical Mesiras Nefesh for self-confidence and the belief in the self in spite of all of the kfira in the self, that it's this Yuval that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to send forth Sharashav, the lights of the Sharashim, the lights of Moichin. That's the territory of Rabbi Shimon. Rabbi Shimon in the world of Bina says what? It's Yuval. But Besafa de Rav Himnuna Saba, Rav Himnuna Saba, which is the secret of the Nunei Hayam, which is the secret of Moshe Raya Mahemna, which is the secret of Minamayim Mishisihu, which is the secret of the watery depths that hide within the Zohar HaKadosh. The Avasha of the Zohar HaKadosh is the territory of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. The watery depths of the Zohar HaKadosh is the territory of Rav Himnuna Saba, Ubeno. Those great fish, the academy of the fish that learns the secret of the Pnimius HaDavarim from the perspective of Chachma, always watching the potential forgetfulness on the ground of Bina, but always certain in its confidence because its confidence is rooted in fundamental bittul. Rav Himnuna Saba, the light of Moshe Rabbeinu, he has a different name for this river. How do we draw down the light in our generation and believe that we're the Dara de Mashiach in this moment, and to be able to draw forth the Nahar Yetzimi Eden specifically from within the Mayim Nukvin that was awoken by our awareness of our deficiencies and the fact that we're a slumber and that our Chachma is not activated and our Bina is not activated and we have no access to Keser, and then suddenly by way of this contemplation of the Meriris we come to Das and we're drawing it down. So Rabbi Shimon says it's Yuval. You have to have self-sacrifice for confidence. It takes that much work to believe in ourselves on the level of Bina. V'yigva libo b'darchei Hashem. But what does Rav Himnuna Saba say? What does Chachma have to say about it? In the territory of Chachma in the water, so it's much easier. It's much easier to believe in self. You're concealed. The tzaddikim of the water hide from the world. And they do the work underneath. They do the subterranean work. The tzaddikim of the earth, the tzaddikim of the Shor Habar, they're on the land. That's the fire of Bina. It takes a lot of effort. But in the sea, down in the sea by Rav Himnuna Saba, Chaim Shmei. The name of the river is Chaim. It's Moichin of Chachma. No. You don't have to be Moiser Nefesh to live with confidence. Live, and that is the confidence. Just be calm in yourself. Trust yourself with that acceptance of the Emunah. within the framework of halacha, accept the calmness of the self. Don't run every second to try and prove the ability to draw down the light by way of Yuval, which is the secret of V'yigva libo b'darchei Hashem, which is the Azis de Kedusha, which is the Hisayrus and the Yagia and the Chuka Aza of Bina. Rav Hamnuna Saba has another suggestion: live with the Chachma, Chayim Shmei. From the water, from the vantage point of Chachma, from the vantage point of Rav Hamnuna Saba, the name of the river is Chayim. Demitema nafkin Chayim la'alma. Because it comes naturally. It's just Chayim Sha'al Mimcha. All we have to do is live, to live al Kiddush Hashem. There were generations that died al Kiddush Hashem, and now the avodah is to live al Kiddush Hashem. V'inun ikrin Chaya de Malka. And both of these, Rav Hamnuna Saba says, the Yoival of Bina and the Chayim of Chachma, express themselves as the Moichin of Zer Anpin. We've now drawn down the light from Das, the Nahar Yoitzim Eden, from the Laman Beis Nesivas Chachma, into our Bina, into our Yashsut, now into Das. And from Das come the Moichin that come down to Zer Anpin, meaning our actual ability to process Chachma, which is the Chayim of Rabbi Nuna Saba, and the Bina, which is the Yuval of Rabbi Shimon. And this is what's referred to as the Chayim Malka. Chayim Malka, the life of the king, is Chachma and Bina. That creates the crown of the king. Chachma, Bina, and Das is the gematria of Keser. The Ha'ukmanan, we've already taught, Hahu Ilana Rabba V'takifa Damazan L'kula Bei Ikra Eitz Chayim. And where do those mochin go now when I'm drawing down? Where am I taking the mochin to? To the Eitz Chayim, to my experience, to Zer Anpin, to the self, to the experience of being a person in this world, of drawing down the Torah into this world, of living with that Nahar Hayotzim Eden, of drawing it down from the Chesed and the Gevura and the Teferes, from the Ahavas Hashem, from the Yiras Hashem, and from the Dveikus with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. From that place, that's the Iker place that these Moichin are now being revealed within the lived experience of a human being in this world with the Chai HaMelech we wear on our heads with our tefillin, whether we're wearing them or not. The Moichin, the Chai HaMelech. The Chai HaMelech, which enables us to find joy in this world, to take this life a little bit less seriously than it actually is, to be able to be joyous and to dance and to laugh in this world. Betanahu Nahar Afik Nachlan, I'm sorry, we're over here. Hahu Ilana Rabba V'takifa Damazon L'kulabe. That level of Zer Anpin is what emerges from within that river that flows forth from Gan Eden. And it's referred to as Eitz Chaim, it's referred to as the parts of Zer Anpin. Ilana Denata Sharashay Be'inun Chaim. The tree of Eitz Chaim, even though it appears to be removed from the realms of absolute unity, that we felt that we left when Rabbi Shimon awoke in that deficiency within ourselves, because it appears to be a descent of the light down from its highest place. But in the end of the day, this tree, this Zer Anpin, this process of differentiation and the midos that we have to draw the light down into, it's rooted be'inun chayim. It's fundamentally rooted in these moichin. And the chayim and the yuval are referred to as chayim because chachma contains bina within itself. V'kula hu shapir, and it's all beautiful and it's all good. And it all comes down and is mezachich, and it illuminates the individual in this world. V'tana hahu nahar afik nachlin amikin b'meshech rabos la'ashka ginsa l'ravaya ilonin v'netiyin d'chsiv yishba'u atzei Hashem arzei levanon asher nata. And not only that, but the light doesn't just settle within Zer Anpin, within the Chesed and the Gevura and the Teferes of it all, but ultimately it needs to be revealed even lower down, because we know that the descent of the light from above to below is ultimately not only to be revealed below, but so that the revelation from below can awaken and return back above to reveal a hitherto unrevealed potency that can only be revealed because of the descent. Vitana, so we've been taught that it's not only Zer Anpin that we're drawing this light down to, but this Nahar, whether it's the Yuval or the Chayim, and in truth it's the Yuval of Chayim, Afak Nachlin Amikin, there are many deep Nachalim, brooks. Remember the pasuk that Rabbi Shimon opened up with, of Kol Nachalim El Holchem Elayam V'Hayam Einanu Malay. That there's many, many different outgrowths and shoots from within this Ilana Ravyava, which is the Zer Anpin, which is Chesed, Gvura, and Teferes, and they extend themselves downwards because their ultimate purpose is to draw forth vitality to the Gan itself, to the outside of reality, to the Genusa of this world, to the body itself, Ularava Ilanan Vinatinin, and to allow the trees and the growths of the body to take shape. The Iker is to draw down Moichin from above, 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 down below, 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 to the secret of the Dir B'Tachtoinim. D'chsiv yisba'u atzei Hashem, all of the trees of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which are the different expressions, and the eitzos amukos b'leiv ish, these arze levanon, arze is the secret of Yud, Raza the Yud, and the Levanon is Lamed Beis Nesivos Chachma, and the Nun Shari Bina Asher Nata, all of these plants that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has planted in reality, the Chaf Vav Drachim of understanding the Shem Havaya, and the secret of Das, and the Ayin Kochas HaNefesh, and the Lamed Beis Nesivos Chachma, and the Nun Shari Bina, and the 12 Yud Beis Gevulei Alkason, all of the different shapes and colors of what it means to be a human being. The goal is to draw the Moichin down there. V'ina Nachlin Nagdin V'ismashchin V'miskanshin B'trein Kaimin. And then where does it go from Chesed, Gvura, and Teferes? It comes down to fundamentally these two pillars that are the preparation for revelation, which are Netzach and Hoid, and Inun Braisa Karinan Lahu, Yochin V'Boaz. These brisim, these two midos that everything is now going to come down to, is Yachun U'Boaz, the Netzach and the Hod of it all. That is the main place in which we process ourselves in this world. Netzach and Hod, the desire for Nitzachon, which is rooted in the cool, calm, and collected nature of Yachin and Hachana, and processing and being present, and that's the Chaim of Rabbi Hamnuna Saba, that I can prepare myself, and the Boaz is the Hod that comes about from Rabbi Shimon. That's the secret of the Azus de Kedusha, that's the secret of the V'yigva Libo B'darchei Hashem. So Yachin and Boaz, we see how the Chachma and the Bina ultimately reveal themselves through Chesed, Gvura, and then they unify themselves into Teferes, and then they split again into Netzach and Hod, which we know are ultimately revelatory of each other because they're both contained within each other. And so they're now, the goal is to draw it down into actual preparation. We're now drawing down the Moichin from Eden through the Nahar of Yuval and Chaim. And ultimately, what we're doing is we're drawing the Reusa Ilah down, the Keser Ilah down. Yachunu Boaz v'shapiu mitema nafkin kol inan nachlin v'shayin loin b'chad dargad ikrit tzaddik. And from Netzach and Hod, they flow forth all of the Netian, all of the outgrowths, all of the shoots that shoot forth from the light. They all culminate and coalesce within a singular point of the Nakuda of Iker, which is the secret of the Yesod, the secret of the Tzaddik, which is the hyper-essentiality of coalescing all of our spiritual energy and our strength of consciousness to the particular point at which is in front of us at this moment, in the secret of Kol HaTorah Kula, Hu Inyan Achas, that the entirety of the Torah is one thing and it rests in front of me in this moment. Dechsiv v'tzadik Yesod Olam, that the tzaddik is the pillar of existence, meaning to say each and every one of us are a tzaddik by the koach of our bittul to the tzaddikim amitim, which is the fact that we draw down the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu through Moshe Rabbeinu's guidance. Vayaminu b'Hashem u'ba Moshe avdo. The importance of Yesod over here in this entire process of drawing the light down is the fact that it all comes back to V'yaminu b'Hashem u'b'Moshe avdo, that it comes through the light of the tzaddik, comes through the light of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, that we cannot rely on ourselves. We have to rely on the spiritual confidence and the spiritual strength that the tzaddikim drew down, that the Yechidei Hadoros drew down for us. It's not the same once they've done it for us. We can't do what they do. We can only believe in what they say about us. And again, this all came about. We forgot already that Rabbi Shimon said we're not awake, because we're very awake now. Dikret tzaddik, the tzaddik yisad olam. V'kulan azlin u'miskanshin lahahu eser dikreyam. And it comes from that place of the tzaddik, from the secret of Kudsha Berichu, from Yerushalayim. It descends down into the Yam, into the Malchus, into the Yama de Chachmasa, into the Yama Chachma, the Yichud of above and below, the secret of Keser being Miskala Lamata in Malchus. And that's the culmination of the spiritual process of drawing it down, 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 from Keser and Chachma down into the Yama de Chachmasa, into the Yama de Chachmasa. This is what it says in Koheles, and this is what Rabbi Shimon started with. All of the outgrowths that come about by way of this entire process, ultimately growing forth from the secret of Netzach Hod and Yesod, which is the externalization of the inner process of Keser Chachma Bina Das, Chesed Gvura Teferes, and Netzach Hod and Yesod are the parts that are going to be revealed later on in the next level. That even though they're all expressing themselves and coalescing in the place of the Yam, in the place of Malchus, nevertheless, Malchus is not filled. Malchus has not exhausted itself. There's still more to be revealed. Now, okay, so Rabbi Shimon says, why are we being told about the remaining chisaron? If this all started with chisaron, why am I being reminded about the chisaron that remains? I just had a taste of fullness. I just threw the light down from Gan Eden. Why am I being reminded that the Yam is not being filled? So Rabbi Shimon says the deficiency that remains is not, God forbid, because we didn't rectify the deficiency that started the whole process. It's just that now that we've rectified that level of deficiency, a higher level of deficiency is revealed to us so that we can go through the whole process again and again and again, each and every moment. Says Rabbi Shimon, now you may have thought that perhaps when the waters descend from above down below and they find themselves in Malchus, that they stay there and they remain there, but they don't return to their place and they don't return to the source from whence they came afterwards, and that it's a fixed system and that experience has been completed. Siv el makom shel hanachalim holchem sham hem shavim laleches. No, the pasuk tells us that adraba ipcha mistabra, the waters come down to the yam and then they ascend back from the yam back to their place, because now once they've been drawn down to Malchus, which was a territory that was theoretically impossible for the light of spirituality to maintain its expression in, and now we've expressed it in Malchus, now we can return back up above with news, and we can say, you'll never believe what we discovered down there. We discovered that even in the Malchus Kol Olamim, in the lowest levels imaginable, your light is still there in the secret of the Yam HaChachma. Why? Why does it return? Why can't it just be one fell swoop of completion? Begin dahahu nahar ele pasik la'almin him shavim. It returns back to that nahar that never stops, to that nahar me'eden, to that nahar. It goes back. All expression goes back, and it reduces its complication one level after the other, so that all of the multiplicity and the shifting and the changes, the more we abstract it back to its source, we come to a place of thinning it all out till it becomes a nakuda daka min hadak. It becomes the nakuda of emuna, the nakuda hayesodit of all things, the bachabakuk v'himid al achas, but tzaddik be'emunasa yichya. That's where we're returning back to. We're returning back to that unending process of the nahara de lepasik, the nahara lepasik la'almin. That place that never stops revealing itself. We all change, and differentiation returns there to create the pleasure of the movement of change within the never-ending expression. La'an eser shavim le'inan shein kaimin netzach v'hod. And where does it return back to again? It comes back down to netzach and hod afterwards. Why? L'leches b'hai tzaddik, to then descend down to the light of the tzaddik and the yisoid again. La'ashkacha birchen v'chedu dahani raza the taninan, in order to bring out more and more blessing. And this is the secret of the Lev Yasan Zu Yatzar to the Tzachik Ba'atzat Tzaddik. The light comes down all the way to Malchus, and then it goes back up, and then it comes back down to Yesod, and then it goes back up, and it comes back down, to the degree that there's the Sha'ashuin of the Lev Yasan, there's the Sha'ashuin of Emuna, there's the unity between above and below, there's the dance that takes shape between the sea and the dry land. All eyes gaze towards the tzaddik. All eyes gaze towards that central pillar, the amuda de emseusa, that is makasher, keser, and malchus, to the tzaddik esod oilam, to the secret of Mashiach tzidkenu, melech sha'ashalom shalo, aviyah sar shalom. And it all comes out be'ito. Be'ito is the secret of the ace. The ace is that moment, that awareness of this moment, that there's a time that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants avodah to take place, and each moment calls for its own avodah, which is why Nahar Yoitze Mi'eden is Yom. Man ito, what is that time? What's the time of the tzaddik? Damachunusa de ito de tzaddik, the unity between Keser of Yesoid and Malchus, which is drawing down and actualizing and congealing the spiritual light so that it can express itself by way of engraving itself in this world. That's the secret of the time. The time is the unity between Yesoid and Malchus. Begin kach kulam mechakin lahayito. Everybody is waiting for that time. Waiting over here, the Derech Emes says, is makavim. The waiting and the yearning and the hoping, as the Rebbe Rashab points out, they're all unified. We're waiting, waiting, waiting for that moment of unity. Kulia de isnazan latata me eser da isnazan v'raza da ukma. It's not enough when we draw the light of Atzilus down and we draw the Moichin down. We're also drawing sustenance to the worlds of separation. We're also irrigating those fields of separation, the Bria, the Yetzira, and the Yasiyah of it all. And they're all coming to draw forth from that Shefa that comes from the Zivug and the Yichud of Kutsha B'richu V'Shchinte, which comes about as a result of this Nahar Yuval and Chaim that is Yoitze Me'eden, Lahashka Sagan. V'razada Ukmina. We already taught this. All of the eyes of separation are looking up towards that zivug of Kutsha B'richu V'Shchinte that takes place by way of drawing all of the Moichin down. Kamada Ukmana. Tachazi, come and see. Come and see. B'shaisa dahai kol mevasem le'itoy u'metchabra amme kulya almin b'chidu kula. The kula almin b'birchen kedein shalta ishtachich lebal b'iloi v'tata. At the moment of this unity, at the moment of this unification, all of the difficulty is sweetened, all of the separation is unified, all of the worlds are joyous with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all of the worlds are in a state of blessing and effulgence and saturation, and there's peace found in all places. But when in the worlds of separation, a person refuses to be awoken when they hear the awakening and the chruza, the chol yuma, in the worlds of separation prior to the illumination, where things are done too quickly and things are done with the wrong intentions and things are done deliberately to be destructive, God forbid. There's concealment that's unleashed upon the world, and there's no peace in the world. And when human beings want to draw forth blessing, they're not able to. But there's one way to do it in those times, and it's to go to the Kohen Gadol, it's to go to the Tzaddik Yisod Olam, begin the entire Kitra delay, because by his awakening and his desire, he has the ability of awakening a light of the Keser that's above all revelation. And by the Tzaddik, there's an illumination of this Yichud even in the times that it's not taking place. It's all B'koyach the Tzaddik. It's all B'koyach Rashbi. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Shaleach HaShliach and Rashbi, just as he was Shaleach HaShliach and Moshe Rabbeinu, just as he's a Shaleach HaShliach and all of the Tzaddik Emes. And each and every year is a Tzaddik Emes, Ba'omek, but that's only revealed through his kashrus to the Tzaddikim Amitim. Tana Bahu Shaisa Ba'i Moshe Kaima Kutshabrichu. Moshe comes in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Moshe comes in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu as if he's been along the conversation the whole time. Where do we see Moshe? We saw him by Rafim Nunasabe. He's been listening all along. Moshe comes in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu when he says, Mila da amarlei ibnei alma yasoyvun kaimech al yedei deman misparchen. HaKadosh Baruch Hu, tell me, if people return, if people come back to you, from whence is the blessing going to emerge? You're going to be the one to distribute the blessing, Hashem? Or is it going to be something else? What role is there for the tzaddik? What role is there for Nishmas Yisrael? Why should there be Tchias HaMesim if it's just going to be Hashem and Bnei Yisrael, Hashem and Matthias? So why does there have to be the body, the tzaddik that comes back? So Amarlei Kutshabirichu, Hashem says to him, Veli at Omer. It's you, Moshe Rabbeinu, that I'm giving it over to. You, Moshe Rabbeinu, you have the koyach. The secret of Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, as the Mittler Rebbe explains in Imre Bina, and the Rebbe Shlita brings very, very often, that we learn Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad by listening to the tzaddikim. Shema Yisrael, meaning Moshe Rabbeinu is saying to Klal Yisrael, listen to me, explain it, trust me when I say it. When Rashbi says it, we can trust him. When the tzaddikim amitim say it, we can trust them. We can trust Moshe Rabbeinu. Kedai lismoch. So Shema Yisrael, listen to me, says the Mittler Rebbe. Listen to Moshe Rabbeinu, Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, and then you'll understand the Razi HaYichud. Be'ezras Hashem, in the schluss of this, we should all be zoichet to draw down an opening of our eyes, and an opening of our ears, and an opening of our das, and an opening of our necks, and an opening of our breath, and an opening of our emotions, and an opening of our feelings, and an opening of our processes, and an opening of our preparation, and our opening of our actualization, all of the moments in our lives where we are trying to find nachas, where we are trying to unify chachma and bina to create an engraving of experience within the transiency of it all, and in that place to taste the light of simcha, to taste the world of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, to taste the niknas atzur, the nikras atzur, that cleft in the rock where all things are protected and all things are good, and to daven for the hiskalis of Rabbi Shimon of Gal Einai va'abita neflos misarasecha, and b'hai safri afkan megalusa berachmim b'mhera b'yameinu mamish amen.